Hello, this is Mr. Gretzky9966 doing a contest video for a great buddy, Jericho Comics and Pulp Culture. He's doing his 500 sub contest, and then probably by now he's probably closer to 600 and that, so I thought I would do the contest for him. One thing was, he was talking about during the contest, what was like an artist from the 70s and 80s that you were into and everything. And from what I got here is, I've actually got an artist who actually started out back in the 50s that worked his way up into the 80s. I believe 85 was the last time he did any work, but he's well known, or if you know who he is, which a lot of people do not know who he is, but himself has redefined what Superman is today. And his last work was with Alan Moore back in 85. The only reason he got kicked off the book, he probably would have kept going if it wasn't for the fact that they had brought in John Burns shortly after that, about 85, 86, when he got kicked off for John Burns. No reason why, just bye. Here's John Burns. Same thing they did with Bendis. Bye, Jurgens. You're a great Superman artist. We love what you're doing, but we got to move you on. Instead of giving him another book, we got to move on and do something different. So this is for him. He's a great guy, Chris, and everything. We've done him. I've sent him a random act of kindness a while back, and we've talked some on Facebook, a little bit, Messenger, and we talked some done some of his videos and all that. So he's a real great guy. He collects a whole lot of stuff. Been collecting, I guess he said, up to 13,000 books now. He's been collecting a ton. I mean, I've been collecting a ton of stuff, but lately he's been redefining my collection, selling stuff off, and stuff like that, and trading stuff, selling stuff, sending stuff to people, and doing different things like that. So, for no further ado, here's my man for the first one. It's Curt Swan. He is my favorite Superman, probably the Superman artist of probably 30 years worth of Superman from like the 1950s. I know he started in late 1940s doing comics and got into Superman around 1950 or so. So he was there during the Golden Age, book burning, you name it, he was there, you know. He was there in comics, doing comics, drawing and writing comics and everything. So this is one of his books he did in the 70s. He did the cover and some of the interior. Was 384. Action Comics 384 here. Just love. That's his Superman. He's just defined what Superman is today. A lot of people just don't understand that when you think of Superman, you think of Curt Swan. It's Superman. You don't think of, oh, Superman, and you go back over the years. It's not like Batman where you go back and you say, oh, it's Bill Finger who got Bob Kane to change his character. It was a lot of what Bob Kane did was Bill Finger, but there's been a lot of different artists on the book. Unlike Superman Action Comics had the same guy on it for like 35 years. So it really hadn't changed much. It was just a little bit here, a little bit there. But that's one issue. This is 388 there. I don't even know what that is. Is that the Batmobile? Argo City or Bust. What's wrong with this cover? This is not an April Fool's story. Villains for Superman. Good luck. There's Bizarro. Looks like Bizarro. Crypto. Some people from the Legion of Superheroes. That looks like that could be Lois Lane. There's Supergirl. There's Brainiac. Just so crazy covers that they did back then. But yeah, I just love these covers. They have Kurt Swan, his art inside the book, and all that. You know, underrated guy. Really underrated guy, you know. Who never got much credit for nothing. I mean, most people just push him off as like, oh, it's Superman, who cares? It's created by these two guys, you know, Siegel and Schuster. That's it. That's all we know. We know Dan Jurgens. We know him. We know John Burns worked on it. We know Jeff Johns wrote it. And that's it. Nobody really cares about these guys, you know, these older guys. You know, and they need to be spotlighted more. Not really spotlighted more. They just need to get more recognition for what they do. More in the industry, recognized for what they do. These underrated artists who work for years on books and you don't even sniff them. You don't even think at it. You just look at the cover and you can tell that's a Dan Jurgens cover, or that's a Dan Jurgens art, or that's a Jerry Orway book, or that's or that's Roger Stern's writing on the book, or that's a John Burns cover. You could tell Superman changed. They changed Superman. They wanted a superstar on the book. They gave it to him, just like they're doing with Bendis. Don't like Bendis. Don't like the whole Superman thing. Bought the 1000, and that's it. But I'm going to keep collecting the older stuff because that's where I like it, and that's what I'm going to do. Here's another one, 385, where he's busting through some kryptonite chains. I know I think they got rid of kryptonite or something like that, or introduced kryptonite. I can't remember if they were the ones that introduced kryptonite during his run. There was a few changes to Superman, some big changes to Superman that Kurt Swan was a part of and all that. But you can see back in the day, these were still considered, they still had the Superman logo on there. It was Superman National Comics and DC Comics. Even though they were called DC Comics in the 70s, they went by Superman for a while on their logos, like their biggest thing, until the 80s, or when it started to die off. I think it was dying when they brought in Burns. They wanted an update of it. It was dying off, and Superman in general wasn't great after Superman 1 and 2, the movies 1 and 2. 3 stunk. 3 was good. It just wasn't great. And 4 just stunk like yesterday's old gym socks. Stunk like a pair of old gym socks that you haven't washed in a month. That's what it reminded me of. And then one of the iconic covers here that I actually like, Superman as the Dictator of Earth, 381. This is a great cover, great book, great everything. You can see what it says up there from the moment on there is no more United Nations. Superman banner will replace all other flags. I'm taking over the whole world. Superman taking over the world. And like you can see, it's those 15 centers are great books. They're just quaint little stories that resonate with people. You know, you can read Superman and be like, wow, that was great. And next week you would have another story, or you have a couple of backstories. Now it's one whole issue. You gotta wait you gotta have a story arc. You know, I think that started more around the 90s, the story arc thing, where you had to have a story arc. And Superman's had stories where he crossed over with different people, but nothing's been as good as this stuff here. Superman and the Legion of Superheroes. I mean, it's just great. This is just some of that stuff with the Action Comics banner I actually like that banner pretty much, the way they did the Action Comics back then in the 70s and in the 80s. You know, the 90s was okay. I didn't really care for the Action Comics banner of the 90s and beyond. I mean, there was a few that I liked, you know, you could take it or leave it, but as I'm saying, Superman is actually the Kurt Swan Action Comics run. If you don't get it, pick up those collected books of the 70s, the Superman of the 60s, Superman of the 70s, and even Superman of the 50s. Pick those up, read them. You know, the first few are just like, Superman's fighting corruption, he's fighting bad guys, you know, it's mostly like robbers and corrupt politicians, stuff like that. In the early 40s and in the 30s, in the late 30s, early 40s, 50 up till the 50s, really. Then he starts getting some villains. They added some villains. They were part of the creative team that created a couple of villains. I think he created Brainiac, I think, was one of them. Supergirl, I think, was during his run on the book. So, go from there. And then for the second part of it, he asked us to pick out one of our favorite villains. And I couldn't find very many books. I got a whole bunch of them, but most of them are all scattered all over the place since I've been going through trying to find books to sell and get rid of and stuff. And I can't find the one book I wanted to show was the 80-page book that they did. Was it 80? Yeah, it was an 80-page giant issue that they did, a special issue of Calendar Man. Probably the best Calendar Man story around. But this one here is one of the Calendar Man books that I actually love. It's the Batman 384. It's the day of the Calendar Man. The days of the Calendar Man. You know, and they've revamped the Calendar Man. I mean, they've made Calendar Man even better in the new Tom King run. I think it was a Tom King run, or was it the other one? I can't remember, but Calendar Man was used at some point during one of the runs. Either it was All-Star Batman or Calendar Man or Tom King's run. I can't remember. But it's actually one of the better books and one of the better villains that I actually like. I usually like all these weirdo villains. I don't go for like a lot of people are like, oh, I'm into the Penguin, the Joker, the Riddler, the Catwoman, Mr. Freeze. I could throw in there Bane. For heaven's sakes, you throw Bane in there. I mean, lousy villain that ever was. And a bunch of other things, you know, and I've got other villains that I could have picked. But this is one of my favorite villains of all time in Batman. Next to, like, Crazy Quilt. The Eraser, I think, was only in a couple of issues. I got his first appearance. Some of the villains that they're using now in Gotham. This is a villain that I wish they would put on a movie. I know he was in the Lego Batman movie, but I wish, you know, all the villains pretty much were. But I'd love them to do an animated Batman story with this. I mean, even if they do the Long Halloween animated movie, that would be awesome. And Dark Victory as the backup, as the sequel, because it was the sequel to the book. That was one of the best uses of him ever. And let me see if I can pull it out here. Hang on a minute. Yeah, I don't think he had the new suit yet in this one. Or they've changed it up. I mean, they changed his suit a few times, but yeah. It's just ironic how it's come out to be, it was in the next issue of Detective Comics, whichever issue number that was for the next month. Maybe the same month, next month, whatever. But it was like continued, the story continued into the Detective Comics issue. So, one thing I'd like to have with this character is I believe it's 250 Detective Comics 259. It's either 259 or 252. I get the numbers all confused because because it's 1950 something is when the 1958 or 59 is when the book, his first appearance is. I think it's 259, because I think 100 issues later was Catwoman's first appearance. No, it was Batgirl's first appearance. Was in 359, I think, and I think he was in 350. Yeah, he was in 259, she was in 359. So I'd love to have his first appearance. I've been trying to get that for decades. I'm trying to get that book probably for a long time, and I had a couple opportunities to pick it up pretty cheap and screwed around, and you know how it is. You screw around buying other books and you start buying other junk and that and everything. I would love to have that book. I would love to have that. I'd also love to have the Crazy Quilt's first, was it Crazy Quilt's first appearance? Or, Mr. Polka Dot. That's the one I've been trying. Crazy Quilt's first appearance, I'm going to have to wait on that one. That one's about 90-something bucks. That's in Boy Commander. That's in Boy Commander, which ended up becoming part of Detective Comics eventually, but that was Boy Commander. I forget the Boy Commander number right offhand, but that was in Boy Commander, is when Crazy Quilt was first appearance. But no, the Mr. Polka Dot, the Polka Dot Man, it was in 300. I've had many opportunities to pick that up. I should have pulled the trigger on that one. That was a $14 trigger that I should have pulled. Decent copy. Now you can't pick it up, you know, for less than 20, you know, unless you find a good deal on it. But this book is good. He's one of my favorite Batman villains. I always like the oddball villains. So, congratulations on the 500, Chris. Hope you get more. Hope you keep going for years to come, and more books come out. And as the comic book collection grows, you start figuring out, you know, what you're gonna accomplish at some point. I know we all change, our tastes change, our books change. I mean, I know we collect something and we realize, oh, why did I collect that? I'm really not into that anymore. I want to get rid of it, or I need to move something, so I'm going to take the lesser of two evils and move what I don't need and all that. So as long as you keep enjoying the books, keep doing what you're doing, keep making the videos. Hope you're on YouTube for a lot longer and everything. Hope to maybe someday do a trade with you, or talk to you some more about different things. I really love how you're into Archie and everything. I probably would have picked some Archie thing, but everybody would probably say, oh, that's the Archie guy, picking Archie. You know, with picking Action Comics and Batman, you know, out of all the villains that I like, you know. And I also like the Trickster. I got his first appearance in Flash 113. I got that a while back, 2012 maybe. I think I picked that up off of Midtown. Just happened to, on a whim, order it and get it. So that's been pretty cool. I'd like to get I think his second appearance is in Flash 121. I think it is. I think it's 121. Somewhere right around there is his second appearance. I'd like to get his second appearance, at least, of the Trickster. But if I can get that first appearance of this, I'd probably get the first appearance of this over the second appearance of the Trickster. Second and third appearance of the Trickster. And I think it's 121, 123. I think with the first and third appearances or something like that. Second and third appearances after the first one. So, but if I can get that 259 issue and issue 300 of the other guy, Mr. Polka Dot, I'd really love those. Having both of those in my collection would be awesome. But, alright, it's getting long. I'll talk to you later. Then thanks again for doing this fun contest, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.